Welcome to another episode of Q&A with RA. We're live.
Here it is.
Yeah, should be on your feed any second. If it's
Man,
not
you look
already.
so crispy.
Yeah, I moved my office around a little bit. I used to sit over there and be facing that way, and now I turned it around and I don't know, one of those red and black panels behind me. I think they look sharp.
I like the panels and I like the change. I'm the same way. I like to just update my office, and I was like, he did a new angle. I got to do. I can't like be left behind. I got to try a new angle. So
Yeah, I think it looks good.
moved it over here today.
Yeah, it looks sharp. Sharp. Well, today's gonna be a little different Q&A. I think it's normally we ask, questions about webinars or seminars or lead generation or whatever, and change it up a little bit.
I don't like the new Facebook.
I don't either. I'm not, I'll get used to it, just like anything else. But I'm not a big fan of the new layout. It's meh. It's too. I don't know. It's confusing and like it's bubbly. I don't really like that. I like the kind of the cleaner look that was before.
Yeah, the cleaner look, because everything to me feels like it like blends together. It doesn't like stand out. So I'm always like, where are my notifications? Or I don't know. It just looks a little weird.
Yeah, I was trying to find settings the other day because I was like getting admin access to a page, a customer's page, and it took me forever to find it. It took me forever to find it because it was in a different spot and everything just looked and felt different. And I don't know. I want to go back, but.
Crispy. All right, so for today's, I don't even know if we can call. Well, yeah, it's a Q&A.
Yeah, you can be asking questions.
You're just gonna answer them.
Yeah, it's a Q&A.
We're gonna interview Andrew. Let's find out get into some of the meat, because we preach it all the time, all day long. It's connection before content.
Mm-hmm.
We have fantastic programs. We back them with guarantees. They're priced amazingly, getting good results. But like, who are the people behind those things? That's what I want to kind of dive into a little bit over the next few weeks, probably. Mm-hmm. Even eventually some of our team, kind of bring them in. I don't know. So we're going to start with Big A. We're going to get...
Big A. Is that a fat joke?
No,
Was that
no, definitely not.
I feel like that was a fat joke.
No, you can't bait me. Nope. So today we're going to start with interviewing Andrew. And honestly, so I started writing out questions, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I know this dude well enough. I want to start from... honestly, kind of the beginning. Start from when little Andrew was little Andrew. Like, what was little Andrew like?
Before he became Big Andrew? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not doing it. So let's start there. Where were you born? Start there. Where are you from?
I was born in New Hampshire. Grew up in a little town called Ware, New Hampshire, ironically. Ware. It's about, I think, I don't even know the exact mileage, but it's probably 20 miles south and east of Concord, New Hampshire, which is the capital. So born there, lived there until I was almost 10, and I've lived a lot of other places since then. Lived in Virginia, Texas, Wisconsin, back in Virginia, back in New Hampshire, Colorado, Indiana now, so I've been kind of all over, but born in New Hampshire. Richy Hurdle?
New Hampshire. I've literally never been there. So
it's pretty nice.
Take me on a trip of where you came from one time. Like, we'll just go.
So
we'll look at boats and.
Yeah, I mean, it's there, if you don't mind bugs in the spring and summer. I mean, there's a lot of black flies and mosquitoes and humidity and whatnot. But it's a great state.
You're selling me for sure.
It's a great place for fishing. There's a lot of lakes, a lot of woods. I mean, it's very kind of rural for the most part. I mean, there's definitely some cities and some developed areas, but New Hampshire is a very beautiful area, especially if you like camping, fishing, hunting, hiking, those kinds of things.
Nice.
The mountains there are pretty. They're not like Colorado mountains. It's a different kind of mountain, but the elevation gain from the coast of New Hampshire, which is obviously 0 feet above sea level, up to Mount Washington, top of Mount Washington. I think it's like 6,400 feet. I don't remember exactly. But the elevation gain from the coast, where most, the sea level where most people live, up to the top is actually a more significant elevation gain than like Denver to the top of Pikes Peak. So it's a pretty drastic climate difference. And it's one of the windiest places in the world on top of Mount Washington. Some pretty incredible weather that happens there. But it's a neat state. Live free or die, baby.
So would you ever live there again?
Maybe, yeah. It's one of those things. I joke with my wife that she's a gypsy, So like we, potentially move wherever because,
Yeah.
doing what we do for RA, it doesn't really matter where I live. So, living in New Hampshire is always a possibility. We've thought about Maine, we've thought about Montana, we've thought about, we're not really necessarily tied down to any one state or location. We're kind of fluid that way. Although I do like Indiana quite a lot.
Oh, I do too. I'll just let that sit.
You're not going to bait me. I'm not going to take it.
Okay, so fishing, hunting, did you grow up doing that type of stuff? I know you go fishing now. You've been to Canada with your buddies a few times over the years, but
I fished with my grandfather quite a bit when I was a kid. Never really did any hunting. I mean, a little bit, like squirrel hunting, things like that, but never got into hunting until I was a teenager. Fishing with my grandfather is one of my fondest childhood memories. We used to go to Lake Sunapee. That's where I caught some of my first fish, and Perkins Pond. I remember my grandpa would always call northern pike pickerel. I don't know why, but he called them pickerel. So we caught a lot of pickerel and catfish. And I remember distinctly, I went fishing with my grandfather and my brother when I was probably 8 or 9. And we caught a lot of perch, and we caught some bluegill and some crappie and things like that. And I caught, at that time, what I thought was a huge bass. And it was definitely the biggest fish of the day. And looking back,
largemouth,
yeah, and
okay,
it wasn't really that big of a fish. I don't know what it weighed, but as a 9-year-old, you're like, oh my goodness, this thing is huge.
10 pounds.
It's a whale. And I just remember, I think if my memory serves correctly, my brother was a little bit butthurt that I caught the biggest fish of the day, and it was, it wasn't even that big, but looking back, it was a lot of fun. Some of my fondest memories.
It was probably like this big, but in the picture, you're like, oh,
look how
so
big this thing is. I'll hold it up. Yeah. It was. I do remember it was a decent size bass for like a 9-year-old, but it wasn't. I've caught much bigger bass at this point, much bigger fish since then as an adult, but definitely that was a fun time.
And this is not my interview, but my earliest probably memory with fishing was with my grandpa too. We were jigging for perch.
Oh yeah.
In South Dakota with my cousin, my dad, and my grandpa. It was a lot of fun. So I can relate to the fishing stories for sure. Yeah. Okay, so give me, before we move on from your childhood, and I'm talking like born to middle school, what would be like one memory that sticks out to you? What's something, I don't know, anything. What did Andrew run around doing? What's a memory you have?
My brother and I used to play outside a lot. I mean, that was our thing growing up in New Hampshire and then eventually living in Northern Virginia. I'd say one of my, and this is again a little earlier memory, this is probably when I was 5 or 6. Not a positive thing necessarily, but my brother and I got in trouble for something. And so we were sent outside to play because we were being too rambunctious in the house. And we were cold because it was New Hampshire and it was like November or something. It was cold outside. It wasn't snowing or anything, but it was cold. And so my brother goes and gets a box of matches. And my brother's 5.5 years older than I am, so I was probably 6. He was maybe 11 or 12. And we had this like kind of grove of like pine trees next to the house, and we were cold. So he's like, "Let's make a campfire." So we get our rocks and we make a ring and we start a little fire and these pine needles. And of course, it's pine needles, and so it spreads like crazy. Like within minutes, it's like spreading everywhere. And my neighbor and my mom are freaking out, like trying to put out this fire, and like basically we burned. I don't know how, it was like maybe like a half acre like burned. Because,
oh my god, a half acre!
Yeah, it was a lot. It was quite, and it wasn't like a forest fire, like the trees were burning. It was just like the ground was all the pine needles and the leaves and everything were on fire, and got it put out with the neighbor's hose, and the neighbor helped, and my mom was out there like beating it with a blanket and all this stuff. So, but I just remember we got punished because. That was bad, well, right?
You burned things.
We burned things. We lit things on fire. So Jacob, my older brother, goes in first, and we had talked about this. We knew we were getting in trouble, so we talked about this, and we had decided on. We started the fire with sticks, rubbing sticks together. The old Bear Grylls method.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he goes in, and I'm.
No, wait a second. You started a fire with sticks?
That's what we did. That's what we said. Yeah, with matchsticks, but.
Yeah.
As the story goes. He goes in to get his punishment, and I'm outside of my parents' room. My mom's dealing with him, And he comes out a few minutes later just in tears, just absolutely devastated because he got in big trouble, got a spanking or whatever. And he comes out, just tell her the truth. Just tell her we did it with matches. So, like, he sacrificed himself. And so, like, I really didn't get in that much trouble because he was the older brother.
Big brother.
But then after that, like, it was like a couple weeks later, like, we got to go to the fire department and, like, climb around the fire trucks and, like, talk to the firemen because it was like we had to learn our lesson. And so I kind of got like sort of semi-rewarded for it. And so that was that's a distinct memory in my mind of something that I did
that
as,
was a jewel.
as a child. That I'm
just
sure.
Tell the truth.
Just tell the truth. Just tell the truth.
Oh man, he fell on that sword for you.
He did. He absolutely did.
Right. Oh man, that's hilarious. Okay, so then when did you move away from there? How old were you when you moved from?
9, I think, 9 or 10.
Where'd you go then?
Northern Virginia.
Okay, what was that? Why'd you go there? For how long?
My dad worked for an aircraft manufacturer as a pilot, and they moved. I think actually, when we were in New Hampshire, he may have been working for an airline at the time, and then started working for the aircraft manufacturer while we lived there. And they were headquartered down in Northern Virginia, I think Fairfax area. And so we lived in what's the name of that town? Doesn't matter. It's close to Winchester, and that he would go to Germany and pick up airplanes and fly them back or fly them to the customers or whatever, because that's what he did for job training the new pilots on the new airplanes and things like that. And so we lived there for a while, and then that airline or aircraft manufacturer moved their headquarters to San Antonio, Texas, and ended up moving there when I was 14. Lived there for about a year and a half, and then they moved back to Virginia, and because of some mismanagement, that company ended up going under, and my dad ended up becoming a corporate pilot at that point, but that moved him back to New Hampshire, but by then I was in college and all that good stuff. So moved to Virginia when I was 9, lived there until I was 14 and a half or 15, Texas for a couple of years, and then back to Virginia to finish out high school, and then technically back to New Hampshire while I was in college. So
did you ever think you would follow in the footsteps and become a pilot, or were you always like, I'm gonna own my own company and it's gonna be a marketing company for financial advice?
No, not at all. My dreams and aspirations changed with the wind. It seemed like when I was a kid, for a long time, I thought I was going to be a teacher. Then late in high school, I wanted to join the Marine Corps because I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. I still love the idea of flying helicopters. But I ended up not doing that and went to college instead, and was studying basically to be a high school history, social studies teacher. And then I did some student teaching, and I found out that I didn't like that, and changed to a humanities degree, and started working for a State Farm agent there in Watertown, Wisconsin, and got into insurance, and then got into marketing.
So college is interesting to me because it's such a small world. So I went to high school here in Colorado. It's where I met my wife. It's where, it was a small kind of personal school, but it's funny because a lot of my friends and my now family went to college with you.
Right.
And I didn't know you back then. We didn't know each other, but you went to the same college that they all went to. And then, I don't know, it was like a weird kind of, it's just, like I said, it's a small world once you people know people. What is it, 5 degrees of separation now?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So you went to school up there. I think you played football for a year at college. That was probably pretty cool.
Yeah, I played with Jotham, your brother-in-law. I don't think did anybody else go? Jotham or just Josiah visited.
He visited Joe Johnson.
Yep.
You probably know some of these guys.
Some of those
dudes. Timmy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dan Dykes. Yeah. I knew.
Thanks.
I played football for a couple of years there at college. I wasn't any good. I was definitely B squad at best. But yeah, I played with those guys, and then.
Did Jotham ever get to hit you? Did he lay a smack on you?
Not that I remember. I mean, I was defense, he was offense. He was a running back. I was a defensive tackle. So I'm sure in scrimmages and stuff.
Small. He's too small anyways.
Yeah,
right?
there was a guy on the team. I don't remember his name. His name was Tony. I don't remember his last name, but he was a beast. He was an animal. The dude could bench like 600 pounds. It seemed like. And I remember. I don't even know if he remembers this or if anybody remembers this except for me. But it was like practice before a big game, and I tackled him and rolled his ankle, and he was like our star running back. and everybody was so mad at me because Tony was out for the next game because of me.
Yeah.
And so I didn't love the football experience. We didn't win a lot, so I think that was part of it. We didn't have exactly a winning team, but made some good friends for sure. And it was good
So
time.
one of those friends kind of led you back to Colorado. You were working for State Farm.
Yep.
You had your agent that you were working for. That's how you got your start in the insurance business right out of college.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so you moved back to Colorado. You live in the Springs, right?
Yeah. So when
you didn't have any kids at this point either.
Yeah, when my wife and I got married, we lived in Wisconsin. After we got married, I was working for a State Farm agent there, and we found out Crystal was pregnant with our first child, and we had always kind of wanted to live in Colorado. That was something that we had both kind of talked about. I had visited because my uncle lives out there, and I always loved it. So I was like, if we're gonna do it, we got to do it now before we start having kids. So working at State Farm, I was able to kind of coordinate with some of the leadership there at corporate and say, hey, I'm looking to move. Is there anybody that I could go work for in Colorado? Lined up a few interviews and ended up moving to Colorado Springs, kind of sight unseen, and lived there for a few years. And my roommate in college, a guy named Luke, his brother, Jonathan, owned an FMO with a couple other folks. And Luke lived nearby in Colorado Springs, so we hang out a lot. I got him a job at State Farm. We were buddies, knew the family well, spent Christmas with them once or twice. And Jonathan knew that I wasn't necessarily thrilled with sticking around with State Farm forever because they had changed some of the way their structures worked and their contracts worked. So he said, hey, we're looking for somebody that's quality that can do some business developing and recruiting and sales support stuff at our FMO. Are you interested? So I interviewed and liked them. They liked me, and that's how I got into the independent world.
Yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah.
So, dude, as long as I've known you, from day one when I walked into that FMO, met you face to face, like you're just a very mature, hard worker, and to this day, fast forward however many years, like I don't understand how you. I literally just had to learn how to manage my email from Andrew Riis. I still learn stuff from you. You're such a hard worker. So where does that motivation come from? Kind of that work ethic that you have. Is that just something you learned over the years through everything, or is there a specific moment? What motivates you to have that?
Yeah. So I don't know for sure if this is the source of all that, but when I was in high school, junior or senior in high school, I was doing some odd jobs for a friend because one of the things that hasn't come up in this conversation is I used to do a lot of horse showing. I used to ride horses and show horses.
Oh, yeah.
So
do you have any pictures?
I'm sure there are pictures floating around somewhere, but I'm not going to find them. Worked with a lot of horses back in the day, and the lady that I worked for, she was two things. Her husband was a veterinarian, so I worked for him sometimes in his vet's office, and then she was a realtor. So they both own their own business, both entrepreneurial, and I was helping them. The reason the way I got to ride the horses rather than them charging me some sort of lessons or anything like that, I would do work around their house. I would clean the horse stalls. I would do some landscaping or whatever. And one day they were out of town and they asked me to house sit for them and do some yard work. And I remember they had me basically moving a big brush pile from one place on the property to another so that they could burn it and clean it up because they had a pretty big piece of land they wanted to get cleaned up for the horses. And I didn't do a great job, straight up. Just did not do a great job. I just kind of did it halfway and didn't put a lot of effort into it. I just kind of did it, I just halfway did it.
Get it over with, yeah.
And the lady came back. Her name was Kathy, and she brought me to her house to write the check basically to pay for my time. And she sat me down and she was so straight up honest with me, and she was like, you did not do a good job. Do you think you deserve this money? And I was I felt entitled to it. I was like, well, yes, of course I did. And she's like, then she takes me outside. She shows me the result of my effort. And she was like, I'm only going to pay you because I like you. And I think you're going to learn your lesson from this, but I shouldn't be paying you for this. And she was showing me everything that I did wrong and all this, because she had given me explicit directions on what she wanted, and I just didn't do it, and I didn't follow instructions. So that sticks with me to this day. Kathy Gregg, I don't know if you're ever going to see this video, but
Interesting.
That moment for me was it was very emotional because I was like, man, my pride's getting shot. Nobody's ever questioned my work ethic before, but she basically said that I was being lazy and just doing it to grab the money and not actually do the work. And as a 17-year-old or whatever I was at the time, I was like kind of shocked that somebody had the nerve to call me out, and she was right, 100%.
And you knew it, and so that's why
it stuck with me for sure. And I won't say that I've never not given 100% since then, but that was definitely a pivotal moment for me when she was just like, this is what I asked you to do, this is what you did. And you know, if you were a licensed contractor, basically I would not be paying you. But I know you're a high school kid that's still learning.
Story.
So that was definitely a point for me that, looking back, and there's probably a few formative moments in my life that stick out, but that was one for sure that taught me to work, give everything my best rather than just trying to get the money.
One of the hardest things as a leader that you can do is like hold somebody accountable. I mean, it seems so easy, like, hey, you didn't do a good job, fix it. It's so much harder when it's person to person. Yeah. So that's cool. I mean, that she did that, called you out on it, and that stuck with you. I've never heard that story. That's interesting.
Yep.
All right, something lighter. What like where's your, if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go? Or would you? Because I know you and you're like, screw beaches, I'm going to my office.
I'm not a huge travel fan. It's not like I'm like desperate to go to Italy or Tuscany or Spain or anything like that. It doesn't get my motor running at all. I mean, I think what would be just a boatload of fun is like a cabin in the middle of nowhere with all my kids, because there's a lot of them, and like just that's like
coming up next.
Like a private lake or something with like a pontoon boat that we could just like go out and go fishing, go swimming, kind of just have a relaxing time where we can totally unplug from technology and enjoy time as a family and just that quiet. Because I'm a little bit of an introvert, so I kind of recharge with that quiet, peaceful time, and I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, just you, Crystal, me, and the kids just out there relaxing.
You and the kids, yeah. Sure, you can come along.
Tell me about these kids.
Oh, there's 6 of them.
Yeah, we can't let them off the hook. There's 6 kids, and I knew you when you had 2 kids. Yeah. And it didn't take long for you to get up to to where you are now.
Yeah, so we started off obviously with 1 when we moved to Colorado. We had our first back in 2009. We had our second in early 2011, so there wasn't much time in between the 2. And we took a pretty big break to number 3. I don't remember how that came about. It was probably something that Crystal was like, "Hey, we should have another kid," and I was like, "Okay, whatever." So we did, and then the twins came along very shortly thereafter, and that was a surprise. I never call kids an accident, but they were a surprise for sure. Crystal was on birth control and all this other stuff, and she's also taking some other medication that apparently counteracted it, and so we were not expecting to have any more. But then we had found out we were pregnant again, found out they were twins, and that was a huge shock. And
you were here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the timeline. You're in Aurora, right?
Yep.
You're living there.
Yep.
So I mean, let's put it in perspective, because humble beginnings, I think, is always important to go back to.
Yeah.
You're not living in a big place.
No. It was a 4-bedroom, 1.5 bath house that we eventually converted the half bath into a full bath. But it was 1,200 square feet. I mean, it was tiny. It was a tiny, tiny little house. We had 3 kids, and that was max capacity. And we had a big dog and a cat, and like it was a full house. And then the twins obviously came along. We had now 5 kids. And,
came wrong, you said.
And man, we went from max capacity to just bursting at the seams in that house, and started looking around Colorado, because we weren't necessarily planning to leave Colorado, and really anything that was in our price range that was not miles and miles away outside of the city was just just a lateral move. It was the same size house or same size yard. It wasn't really any improvement. So we started looking outside of the state, and that's how we ended up here in Indiana. And ended up, I remember distinctly, I can tell you where I was sitting in my house. Crystal and I were talking about, should we have any more children? Because we had 5. And, we've been very fortunate, very, very blessed that we've never had any infertility issues at all. And I said to her, if we don't make a decision one way or another, that is a decision. We're going to have another kid, period. Indecision is a decision for us. And sure enough, like a month later, she's pregnant. And so at that point, we made the decision. So
Yeah.
we're not planning on having any other children at this point.
It was Stork's Drive Up or something, if I remember right.
Right. So we ended up with our final child, Perry, and she's a joy. She's definitely the baby of the family, and
dude, you guys have amazing kids.
Thank you.
Parenting is hard. It's hard. Your kids are awesome. They're so well behaved. They have great personalities. They look good. I mean, they're just good. You have a great family.
They're clothed and fed. They're clothed, fed, and educated. And so
fed.
That's all that really counts. Right?
Oh, it's funny. No, that's one of the things I admire too. Is you guys just move, and I'm the same way. Like, I don't mind moving. I love Colorado. It's where I was born, and I always rag on Indiana. But it's not permanent. Like, just move. I have friends here that are miserable in their jobs, and they hate, their surroundings and all that stuff. And I'm always like, there's a world out there. Like, there's 50 other states. If just go, or 49 other states. Like, go move into one of them.
Right. And
they're like, I can't do that. I can't do that. But you guys are, you see it as an adventure, and you just get up and go and move. And so that's where Indiana started. And that's interesting. So, okay. I don't know. I mean, that's pretty full circle. We started with you as a kid, heard some cool stories. You as an adult. What? Just real quick, as a business owner at RA, what's something you've learned as a business owner? I mean, we have to constantly kind of show up. We've got a bunch of partners, advisors, programs, guarantees. Like, we've got to show up every single day, and you do that really well. So, like, what's something, I don't know, that you want to share about being a business owner?
Yeah, it's way harder than I ever thought it would be. I kind of, when we first started thinking about doing this, Richy and I kind of had pie in the sky ideas, and I think fortunately, because of both of our work ethics, we've been able to really achieve a lot of our goals, and we're still shooting for even bigger ones. But it's harder than I thought it would be. I never really understood that it was sleep to sleep. You talk about a 9-to-5 job, you talk about working 40 hours a week, and that it just never really stops. And I think that was a surprise to me. As we've grown, I figured, well, if we do this or we do that, then it's going to ease up time here, ease up time there. And to a certain degree, those things absolutely happen. But then as you grow, there are other things that you just didn't even realize. You just didn't even recognize that, hey, this is something you're going to have to deal with. And I mean, even things from unemployment insurance to payroll to taxes to all these other things that you just never really think about as an employee that now we're dealing with. It's like, wow, it gives me a greater appreciation for all my previous employers and what they were going through, because most of my employers had, a team of at least 3 or 4 people. And that's, I recognize now that the management of that is much different than I anticipated. But it's also exciting because you don't get to have these challenges without having growth. So it's you don't pay taxes unless you're making money for the most part, and you don't have the blood, sweat, and tears of growing a company unless your company is growing. So it's an exciting challenge, but definitely harder than I expected. Different than I expected.
Yeah, I could echo that for sure. And I think that's what makes an entrepreneur, and what makes you good at being an entrepreneur is, coronavirus happens. And instead of freaking out, we have to close our doors, we have to lay people off, we got to wait this thing out. You and I just said, look, this is an awesome challenge. Let's rise up to it. It's almost like a rite of passage. Like, what are we going to do, and how are we going to get through this season? And I remember having conversations with you. What I've always appreciated about you is your just confidence, whether you even know it or not. Like, I don't even know if half the time you know the answer, but you just act like you do. And it's very confident and believable. And so you're just very confident about things. And I think that's because of your work ethic. And it's like, I once had a conversation with a lady that I was interviewing to this was back when I was doing freelancing stuff, and I was going to run her ads, and she was a success coach, like a business coach. And I'm talking to her, and she's kind of giving me a free session is what it turned out to be. And I was a little nervous about going out on my own. This is before you and I had even talked. This is, I was going to do Richy LLC or whatever it was. And I'm like, I'm just nervous about it. And she goes, stop. And I kind of comment, what do you mean? Stop. She's like, are you telling me right now that if your family's going to go hungry, you wouldn't find a way to feed them? And what am I going to say that?
Right.
No, but it was a switch, and I see that in you too. I mean, if there's a challenge, you're not going to fail. I think you know that about yourself. If you're going to bet on Andrew Riis isn't going to fail. Yeah. I think that's a true sign of an entrepreneur, what makes us successful. So
yeah, I would agree with that. It is definitely it's not thinking about all the bad things or the hard things. It's finding ways to make that work for you, whatever that situation might be. Where's the opportunity in that situation, and how can you take what's happening? And I mean, coronavirus is a fantastic example of that. You know, our entire business was built around the idea of people in groups. And that was, I can't remember who it was, but probably a month into this whole thing, somebody said, "Oh, is this impacted your? It probably hasn't impacted your business at all." And I was like, "Well, considering like everything that we did was getting people in groups, yeah, it's had a pretty significant impact." But fortunately, it's not an impact that's making us shut our doors. It's an impact that made us think on our feet and come up with a solution that works and that can keep everybody employed and happy. So it's been an interesting journey, even these last couple of months. What is it? Almost 3 months now that we've been dealing with all this.
Yeah, and I can tell you right now, and I know you'll echo it, it's because of our team that we're still seeing success.
Yeah.
I mean, we can lead and we can be innovative and we can be pumped up and motivated, but we can't do anything without the team having that same attitude.
Yeah.
So 100%, super thankful. Really thankful for what we put together.
Yeah.
Bringing on another face that some of you might recognize Monday. Really excited for that. So we're still growing and got some really cool opportunities coming up. So, all right, man. Anything else? I mean, what else? I know you're a Patriots fan and all that crap. I didn't want to bring up things that were gonna piss people off, so I left Tom Brady out.
I mean, being born in New England, I come by it honestly. So some people say, "Oh, you're just a bandwagon fan." Like, no, I mean, I grew up. I think my first baseball hat ever was a Red Sox hat. My uncle got me a Patriots hat when I was a kid. So I mean, I've always been. You know, I've never been our family was never a big sports family. You know, it wasn't a thing for us to necessarily sit down and watch football on Sunday afternoon. But yeah, I'm a New England Patriots fan. You know, I guess if I had to pick a basketball team, probably a Celtics fan, definitely a Bruins fan, definitely a Red Sox fan. I also love NASCAR.
All right, I'm gonna quick fire a couple and we'll wrap this up. We're at 30 minutes.
All right.
Just answer first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
And I just have a cheat sheet, 100 questions getting to know someone.
Okay.
So I'm picking out random ones.
One word answers or just?
I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't.
All right.
Yeah, I haven't read most of them here. Okay, ready?
Go.
All right. Would you rather ride a bike, ride a horse, or drive a car?
Drive a car.
Would you rather wash dishes, mow the lawn, clean the bathroom, or vacuum the house?
Mow the lawn.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. These are all like long answer questions. Can't do those.
Mow the lawn last
What's
night?
your favorite? Yeah, you did. What's your favorite book to read?
Right now, I'm going through for the second time all the Tom Clancy novels, like the Jack Ryan series, that like kind of spy thriller stuff.
Nice. Okay. Where was that one? If you had to choose only one meal to eat the rest of your life, what would it be?
Man, I do love pizza.
Dude, pizza, you can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong. Yeah, I'm saying pizza.
What's the best gift you've ever been given? Or the worst, if you could think of one of those, call somebody out.
I don't know. I'm not a terribly good gift receiver.
You're a great gift giver, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I'm not a good gift receiver. My wife has a few times she's really surprised me with something. Let me just the like this Christmas, I was totally surprised, and it's a little thing, but my wife got me new sunglasses because I've had the same Oakley sunglasses for like 10 years, and
Those are sharp.
I had talked about getting some new ones. I just never pulled the trigger. And at some point, she had written down basically exactly what I said. I wanted the matte black, I wanted the red Oakley logo, and I wanted the polarized, gray lenses. And that's exactly what she got me, and I was just totally shocked by it because I thought we'd only talked about it maybe once, and it had been months ago, and she had written it down, and she'd remembered, and she had got them custom made for me.
Those are sharp
on Christmas this year. So I'm sure that's just the most recent one that I can think of. That was like, wow, I was not expecting that. So that's yeah. There you go.
Okay, 2 more and we're done.
Okay.
What is the last show you recorded on TV? Or watched, because everybody doesn't record anymore.
Yeah, I haven't had DirecTV or cable or anything for over a year now. Last show I watched, we're watching The Great right now, which is kind of okay. It's about Catherine the Great. It's kind of like a dramedy.
Okay, interesting. Netflix?
Hulu.
Okay. All right, last one. If you were a superhero, what powers would you have? What would be your
Um,
number one power?
Number one power. I think it would have to be. It would have to be either like probably like flying or like strength. Like because if you're strong enough, you can jump far enough, and then you basically can fly. Um, so yeah, probably flying or
Like a Hulk?
like a Hulk or like a Superman. Superman probably. That's.
Well, Superman has everything.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like I don't want to be. I don't want
Man.
to be pigeonholed into one power. But flying, I guess. Flying, I guess.
All right. Flying would be pretty dope.
That would be
I'm not
pretty
gonna
cool.
lie.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. This is a little bit different, but it's cool to get to know you, Andrew. I knew a lot of those questions, but you're an interesting dude. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering honestly and humoring us with a little bit of interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Next time we do this, it's gonna be Richy on the hot seat, and I know some embarrassing stories about Richy Hurdle, and I'm gonna try to work those in somehow. I'm try to ask the right questions.
Open book.
To make sure.
I'm probably too open, so be careful what you ask.
Oh,
all right. Well,
cool.
Appreciate you guys. Maybe we'll put this on the website too underneath you. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, it might be neat. Yeah. Hopefully the audio delay got worked out this time, where we could actually put this on YouTube and it won't be embarrassing.
With that quote, if you're strong enough, you can basically fly.
Yeah, I mean that's the truth, right? I mean, if you're strong enough, you can jump, and basically you're flying, right? I mean, you're not actually flying, but you just jump. Yeah, so
I'm with you.
it's cheating a
All
little
right.
bit, but all right.
Still. All right. Have a great week. I guess weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.
Take care.